You put a fresh clamshell of strawberries in the fridge on Sunday. By Tuesday morning, half of them are fuzzy and soft, and you're standing there throwing good money in the trash. It happens every single time. Doesn't matter if you paid $3.99 at Walmart or $8 at the farmer's market. Same result, 2 days, dead. And you tell yourself next time you'll eat them faster. But next time is the same story, every single week, all summer long. I spent 30 years watching my grandmother keep berries on this farm for weeks at a stretch. No fancy containers, no vacuum sealing, nothing from a late-night infomercial. Just a method she picked up somewhere along the way that everybody in my generation forgot the moment grocery stores started doing the thinking for us. Last fall, I was in a conversation with an agricultural exchange group, guys who work small plot farming across the Pacific, and a farmer from Nagano, Japan, walked me through the exact same principle my grandmother used. Different continent, different language, same logic. And it takes 30 seconds. I'm Dale Porter. I run 200 acres in Ohio, third generation on this land, and I spent years cooking professionally before I came back here to do this right. Subscribe if you want practical knowledge that actually holds up. Not trends, not content. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the last piece of produce you threw away before you even got to use it? I want to know because the answer is going to matter before this video is over. Why your berries are dead before the week starts. Let's talk about what's actually killing your fruit, because most people have no idea and the grocery industry is not rushing to explain it. The primary culprit has a name, Botrytis cinerea. That's the technical term for gray mold, and it is one of the most aggressive plant pathogens in the world. It's not something that grows on your berries after you buy them. It's already there when they go into the clamshell at the packing facility. The spores are invisible, they're on the skin, and they are waiting. All they need is a little moisture and a little time, and they will colonize every berry in that container within 48 hours. Here's the thing about strawberries and raspberries specifically. They have almost no natural defense left by the time they reach you. Wild berries have a waxy cuticle, a thin protective layer, that slows moisture loss and resists surface pathogens. Commercial berries have been bred for size, color, and shelf appearance. That waxy layer got thinner every generation they selected for looks over resilience. What you're buying is a beautiful, fragile berry that has already been handled 6 times, packed into a humid container with its siblings, and driven hundreds or thousands of miles in the back of a refrigerated truck. By the time it's in your house, the clock is already running. Moisture is the second piece of this. Every berry you put in a sealed container is exhaling, literally releasing water vapor as a byproduct of cellular respiration. That moisture has nowhere to go. It condenses on the inside of the plastic clamshell, it sits on the skin of every berry, and it creates the exact environment Botrytis cinerea needs to explode. The mold doesn't need much. A slightly broken spot on the skin from handling, a little condensation, a warm pocket in the fridge near the door, that's all it takes. One infected berry spreads spores to every berry touching it within hours. Ethylene is the third factor and the one people least expect. Ethylene is a gas, a plant hormone, that triggers ripening. Berries produce it naturally. When you pack them tight in a closed container, the ethylene concentration rises, everything ripens faster, and the softening tissue becomes even easier for mold to penetrate. You've probably noticed this without knowing what to call it. The berries on the bottom of the clamshell are always the worst. They've been compressed the entire trip, their skin is broken in spots you can't see, and they've been sitting in a pool of their own ethylene since the facility. They were already behind when you bought them. The damage during transport is the fourth and final piece. When you buy a flat of strawberries, those berries have been shaken for hours in a truck. The ones at the bottom bear weight. Any natural crack in the skin, any spot where the outer layer wasn't perfect, has been working its way open the whole time. Mold doesn't need a big opening. A microscopic split is enough. This is why even berries that look perfect on the outside can be going soft underneath. The entry point is invisible until the mold colony is big enough to show up as fuzz. So when you put those berries in your refrigerator and they're dead in 2 days, it's not because your fridge is wrong, it's not because you waited too long to eat them, and it's not because you got a bad batch. It's because the conditions for failure were already set in motion before the berries ever reached the store. The farmer from Nagano and the 30-second fix Toshiro, the farmer I spoke with, grows small plot strawberries in Nagano Prefecture. Nagano is mountain country, cooler climate, and strawberry cultivation there has been refined over generations in a way that American commercial farming never had reason to pursue. When you're growing for local markets and you can't afford to have products spoil, you figure out what works and you pass it down. Toshiro's family has been washing their berries in a diluted vinegar solution before storage for at least 3 generations. His grandmother did it, her mother before her. The method is this: 1 part white vinegar, 10 parts water. You make the solution in a bowl or a large container. You put your berries in, you swirl them gently for 30 seconds, and you pull them out. Then, and this is the part people skip and then wonder why it didn't work, you dry them. Completely. A salad spinner works well. Spreading them on a clean kitchen towel and giving them 10 minutes works. The goal is no standing moisture on the surface when they go into storage. After that, you line whatever container you're using with a dry paper towel, put the berries in a single layer if possible, and refrigerate. That's it. 30 seconds of contact time with the vinegar solution, thorough drying, proper storage. Berries treated this way consistently last 7 to 10 days, and in Toshiro's demonstration, using strawberries that had already been in transit, he showed shelf life pushing 3 weeks under proper refrigeration. 3 weeks on fruit that was going to be dead in 48 hours. My grandmother used a similar principle, though she would have called it just washing them right. She used a splash of apple cider vinegar in a basin of cold water. Same logic, same result. I didn't understand why it worked until I actually looked into the science, but the knowledge was there long before the science caught up to explain it. Why vinegar works. The science behind the method. White vinegar is a dilute acetic acid solution, typically 5% acetic acid in water. When you wash berries in a 1 to 10 dilution, you're creating a mildly acidic surface environment on the skin. Botrytis cinerea, like most molds, requires a pH range around 5.5 to 7.5 to thrive. White vinegar at a 1 to 10 dilution brings the surface pH down to roughly 3.5 to 4.0. That's hostile territory for mold. The spores don't die instantly, but their ability to germinate and colonize is severely compromised. The ones that were about to take hold get knocked back. The ones already established have their growth rate cut dramatically. Here's what vinegar does not do. It does not make your berries taste like vinegar. This is the number one objection I hear, and I understand the skepticism. But at a 1 to 10 dilution with a 30-second contact time, followed by thorough rinsing and drying, you will not taste acetic acid on your fruit. What you will taste is a berry that still tastes like a berry 4 days later, a week later, 10 days later. The flavor profile of the fruit is unchanged. The mold is gone. What vinegar also does is remove pesticide residue and surface dirt more effectively than plain water. This is a real benefit, not a marketing claim. A 2012 study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that acetic acid solutions removed up to 98% of surface pesticide residue from produce, significantly more than water alone or commercial produce washes. You're getting two functions from one solution: mold suppression and surface cleaning. The acidity also has a mild antibacterial effect, which matters for berries that have been handled by many hands between the field and your kitchen. You are not sterilizing the fruit. That's not the goal and not what's happening. You are reducing the microbial load on the surface to a level where the berry's own natural defenses can hold for much longer than they otherwise would. Why the grocery store isn't going to tell you this? I want to be careful here because I'm not interested in conspiracy theories. I deal in what's practical. But there is a straightforward economic reality worth naming. A grocery store's business model does not benefit from berries that last 3 weeks. Faster spoilage means more frequent purchases. If the strawberries you bought last Sunday are dead by Tuesday, you're back in the store by Wednesday. That's not an accident, and it's not purely bad luck. The entire supply chain, from how berries are packed, to how they're stored, to the fact that nobody at the checkout counter is going to say, here's how to make these last 3 times as long, is calibrated for a particular turnover rate. You're paying for the label, not the product. The premium strawberries in the nice packaging at $8 a clamshell are not demonstrably fresher or more mold resistant than the $3.99 ones next to them. In many cases, they came off the same trucks. The difference is the container and the branding. The underlying biology is identical. Both containers of berries have botrytis spores on them. Neither was treated to extend shelf life at home. Neither came with instructions for how to actually keep them alive. The same dynamic applies to every perishable in that store. Short shelf life is a feature of the retail model, not a bug. When you learn to extend shelf life at home, you are opting out of a system that depends on you not knowing how. That's worth understanding. How we handle it on the farm. On this property, summer means fruit. We've got wild blackberries along the fence lines, cultivated strawberries in the lower field, and blueberry bushes my father planted in the late 90s. During peak season, we're picking 10, 15 pounds of mixed berries at a stretch. We're not eating all of that in 2 days. We can't. So the question of how to keep fruit has never been academic here. It's practical necessity. What we do for larger batches is a scaled-up version of the Nagano method. We use a clean 5-gallon bucket with the vinegar water solution. Berries go in, we swirl, we pull them out in batches and spread them on wire racks over clean towels. We let them air dry for a solid 20 minutes before packing. For storage, we use shallow containers, not deep bowls, because depth creates pressure on the bottom layer, and that pressure cracks skin. Strawberries especially need to be kept in a single layer, or at most 2. Raspberries and blackberries tolerate a bit more stacking because their structure is less fragile, but even they do better with space. For summer parties and gatherings, when we know we're going to need fruit 3 weeks out, we do the vinegar wash and then freeze a portion flat on baking sheets before transferring to bags. But for refrigerated storage, keeping berries fresh and ready to eat without freezing, the 30-second wash and proper drying is the method that's held up across generations and across cultures. Toshiro's family in Nagano figured out the same thing my grandmother's generation knew in rural Ohio. That's not a coincidence. That's a solution that works. Applying this to other fruits. The vinegar wash is not exclusive to strawberries. The same botrytis mold problem and the same acetic acid solution applies across a range of soft fruits. Let me walk through the ones most people have in the house. Blueberries respond extremely well to the vinegar wash. They have a natural waxy bloom on the skin, that faint grayish-white coating you see, and many people worry that washing will remove it. It won't. The bloom is a wax produced by the berry itself, and a dilute acetic acid solution at 30 seconds doesn't strip it. What you will remove is the mold spores and surface contamination. Blueberries treated with the vinegar wash will stay firm and fresh in the refrigerator for 10 to 14 days consistently. Raspberries are the most fragile berry you can buy, and they respond the most dramatically to this method. Raspberries have almost no skin barrier. They're essentially hollow drupelets that mold can penetrate from any angle. Without treatment, raspberries from the grocery store are often already going soft within 24 hours. With the vinegar wash and proper drying, you can push that to 5 to 7 days. The drying step is even more critical for raspberries because of how much surface area they have. Any standing moisture will undo everything. Use a salad spinner and then spread them on a towel. Don't rush it. Blackberries are similar to raspberries in structure but slightly more robust. They benefit from the vinegar wash in the same way, and storage time extends from the usual 2 to 3 days to 7 to 10 days under refrigeration. Grapes are often overlooked in this conversation, but they're susceptible to the same mold issues, particularly the smaller, seedless varieties packed tightly in bags. Grapes off the vine in commercial packaging often have botrytis spores present, and they spoil faster than most people expect. The vinegar wash works the same way. Rinse, dry completely, store on a paper towel-lined container. You'll notice grapes stay crisp and firm for 2 to 3 weeks instead of going soft and shriveled in a week. Cherries are a bit different because they have a firmer skin, but they still benefit from the vinegar treatment. The same dilution, same contact time, same drying process. Cherries also release a lot of juice when they start to break down, and that juice accelerates spoilage and everything around them, so keeping them treated and dry in storage matters. What not to do. I need to be specific about this because the wrong application of this method can actually accelerate spoilage or ruin your fruit. Do not use apple cider vinegar at full strength. Apple cider vinegar is also a 5% acetic acid solution, so the chemistry is similar, but commercial apple cider vinegar often has added sugars and flavor compounds that can leave a residue on fruit and actually provide a food source for surface bacteria and mold if the fruit isn't dried completely. If you want to use apple cider vinegar, dilute it at the same 1:10 ratio and be more thorough with drying. Plain white distilled vinegar is the cleaner choice because it's just acetic acid and water. Do not use dish soap or commercial produce wash. Soap is not food safe when it remains on a surface you're about to eat. Even food-safe produce washes, when tested in university studies, have not outperformed plain water at removing pathogens, and they certainly don't match the mold suppression effect of the acetic acid solution. Save your money and skip the produce wash entirely. Do not skip the drying step. This is where most people fail when they try the method and say it didn't work. If you put wet berries, even slightly damp berries, into a closed container in the refrigerator, you have recreated the exact humid environment that Botrytis cinerea needs. The vinegar wash reduced the mold load. The moisture puts it right back. Dry the berries. Completely. 10 minutes on a towel minimum. 20 is better. Do not store in an airtight container without a moisture absorber. The berries are still alive, still respiring, after you treat them. They will still produce moisture vapor in storage. Line the container with a dry paper towel or a folded piece of unbleached parchment. It absorbs the moisture as it accumulates. Replace it every few days if you're storing long term. This is cheap and it makes a significant difference. Do not use the vinegar wash on berries that are already overripe or damaged. If the berry is already soft, already leaking, already showing any visible mold, the wash is not going to save it. You need to pull those berries out before you wash the rest, because one compromised berry will infect the others through contact during the wash process. Sort your berries first. Remove anything questionable. Then treat the healthy ones. The real cost of not knowing this. Let's put a number on this because I think it matters. The USDA and various food waste organizations have tracked American household food waste for years, and the numbers are consistent. The average American household throws away approximately $1,500 worth of food per year. Produce accounts for a significant portion of that. Fresh fruits, berries in particular, are consistently among the top 5 most wasted items because of their short shelf life. A typical American family buys 2 to 3 clamshells of mixed berries per week during the summer months. At an average of $4 to $6 per clamshell, that's $8 to $18 per week in berries alone. If 40% of that goes in the trash, which is a conservative estimate based on typical berry shelf life, that family is throwing away $80 to $200 in berries over a 12-week summer. Over the course of the full year, accounting for all produce, the USDA estimate puts household produce waste at $200 to $400 for the average family. A bottle of white distilled vinegar, 32 ounces, costs about $1.50 at any grocery store. At a 1 to 10 dilution, you can treat 30 to 40 batches of berries from a single bottle. That's a 30-cent solution applied 20 times, or roughly $6 of vinegar for an entire season. Against $200 in produce waste, that's not a close comparison. My family stopped throwing away berries. Not because we suddenly eat faster or plan better, we don't. We just stopped letting the mold win. And the cost of making that change was 1 bottle of white vinegar and 3 minutes of reading about why the method works. The paper towel method, another piece from Nagano Toshiro, shared a second technique that's even simpler than the vinegar wash and works as a companion to it. Before putting your washed and dried berries in their storage container, place a dry paper towel or 2 on the bottom. Just a standard paper towel, no need to buy anything special. The paper towel functions as a moisture sink. As the berries continue to respire and release vapor, the towel absorbs it before it can condense on the berries themselves. When the towel becomes visibly damp, check every 2 or 3 days. Replace it with a fresh one. Toshiro's family uses unbleached absorbent paper because they're conscious of what touches their food directly, and that's a reasonable preference. But standard white paper towels work. The principle is physical, not chemical. Absorption. You're managing the microenvironment inside the container to keep the humidity lower than the berries would create on their own. Used with the vinegar wash, the paper towel method creates a storage environment where mold has no foothold and moisture can't accumulate. Treated berries, properly dried, stored on a paper towel in a shallow container in a consistent refrigerator temperature, not the door where temperature fluctuates, but the main shelves, will outlast any berry you've stored before without treatment. That's not marketing. That's the result of 2 approaches, one from Nagano, one from my grandmother's kitchen, converging on the same answer: when the method won't save them. I want to be straight with you about the limits of this approach because I don't believe in overselling a solution. The vinegar wash extends the life of healthy berries under good storage conditions. It is not a resurrection method. There are situations where it will not help and you need to recognize them. If the berries you bought are already past their prime, if they were sitting in the store for several days before you got them, if the bottom layer is soft when you get home, if there's already a faint fermented smell when you open the container, the vinegar wash will slow the decline, but it won't reverse it. Those berries need to be used immediately or frozen. Don't waste the treatment on them. If your refrigerator has a temperature problem, inconsistent cooling, running warm, fluctuating near the door where you're storing fruit, the vinegar wash won't compensate for an unstable environment. Botrytis grows faster as temperature rises. Berries stored at 32 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit stay dramatically fresher than berries stored at 38 to 40 degrees. If you're consistently losing berries fast, check your refrigerator temperature before blaming the berries. A cheap appliance thermometer costs $3 and tells you everything you need to know. And there's a natural endpoint for every piece of fruit. A berry treated and stored correctly will eventually reach the end of its usable life. What the vinegar wash does is give you enough time to actually eat the berries you paid for instead of watching them die before you get there. 3 weeks is not indefinite. At some point you'll notice the texture softening, the color darkening, the sheen going off the skin. That's the berry telling you it's time. You can cook with it, you can blend it into a smoothie, but fresh eating is done. Know the signs and use it or lose it. Every week in this country, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of produce goes in the trash. Not because people are careless, because nobody ever explained the mechanism and gave them the 30-second fix that changes the outcome. You now know why berries die in 2 days and exactly what to do about it. 1 part white vinegar, 10 parts cold water, 30 seconds, dry them completely, paper towel in the container, back in the refrigerator. Done. If you try this and your berries last longer than they ever have, come back here and tell me. I want to hear it. And if you know someone who throws away berries every week, send them this video. That's how this kind of knowledge spreads, person to person, the same way it's always traveled. Hit subscribe if you want more of this. There's a lot more where it came from.